Thank God she's not yours. The DNA mix-up that unmasked my husband's betrayal. My husband James said this with a laugh, a real laugh. I was lying in the hospital bed, 26 hours after giving birth. My pubic symphysis felt torn apart, every breath tugging at the incision in my lower abdomen, sending spasms of pain through my entire body. Sweat soaked my hospital gown, clinging to my back and chilling me to the bone. Blood still oozed from below, requiring constant pad changes, and the stench of iron mingled with disinfectant lingered relentlessly. My eyelids felt heavy as lead, but I couldn't bear to close them, not when I held her in my arms, my daughter, 7 pounds 3 ounces of perfection. Her dark hair clung to her soft scalp, her delicate little fingers wrapped tightly around mine, and her warm breath brushed against my chest. I named her Hope, a name that had been my only anchor through countless nights of despair. James had just torn open a manila envelope, the test results from Boston Fertility Center. I watched the side of his face as he read, his pupils constricting sharply, his complexion fading from pale to ashen, his lips pressed into a thin line, his knuckles white from gripping the paper so tightly. But in the next instant, an expression I'd never seen before, one mixing ecstasy, relief, and malice, crept over his face like toxic ivy. He threw his head back and let out a near-hysterical laugh, shrill and piercing, hurting my eardrums. The wrinkles around his eyes crinkled, revealing a greedy, cruel glint. Thank God, he shouted, his voice bursting with unrestrained excitement. Thank God she's not yours. My mind went blank, as if struck by a sledgehammer, buzzing relentlessly. He slammed the test results onto the nightstand in front of me, the edges of the paper frayed from being torn. Through blurred tears, I squinted to make out the cold, harsh words: DNA paternity test, exclusion of paternity. Test subjects: infant Patterson and Sarah Patterson, mother. Probability of match, 0%. Those words were like poisoned needles, stabbing my eyes and piercing my heart. I read them over and over, unable to believe what I was seeing. The IVF clinic messed up. James said, his tone light, almost joyful, even rubbing his hands together as if he'd won the lottery. They used the wrong egg. She's not biologically your child. This baby in my arms, the one I'd carried for 9 months, the little one who'd kicked me awake at 3 a.m., the one I'd whispered to while caressing my belly, the one who'd hiccuped and swayed to the rhythm of my heartbeat inside me, she wasn't mine. Biologically, you're just a surrogate carrier, James said, already pulling out his phone and dialing frantically. We can give her back, sue the clinic, get our $60,000 back, plus emotional damages. We're gonna get what we're owed. Time seemed to stand still, the room falling into a deathly silence, broken only by the beeping of medical equipment, counting down the minutes of our shattered marriage. Give her back. I repeated in a whisper, my voice barely audible. Hope, sensing my trembling, pursed her tiny lips and began to whimper softly. She's not your child, Sarah, he snapped, frowning in irritation, not even glancing at the crying baby. Why would we raise someone else's kid? It's a waste of money and effort. To understand why my husband would say such a thing, you need to know how we got here, how the sweet moments we once shared were crushed to dust by reality. I'm Sarah Patterson, 34 years old that day, a third-grade teacher at a public school in Boston, where I'd taught for 12 years. I loved my job, loved the children's clear, innocent eyes, loved watching them grow from shy strangers to lively friends, from confused little ones to thoughtful souls. James and I had been married for 6 years, first meeting in high school. He was the football team's quarterback, the star of the campus in his red jersey, running across the field. I was the school play actress, always backstage with a script in my hands, my cheeks still flushed with youth. He first spoke to me under the sycamore tree behind the school, holding a bottle of my favorite orange soda, his ears turning red. Sarah, will you be my prom date? I don't want anyone else. I still remember him in his suit at the prom, awkwardly holding my hand as we danced, stepping on my dress 3 times, yet smiling like a fool. We were long distance in college. Every Friday night, he'd take a 4-hour train to see me, a bag of my favorite lemon drops always in his pocket, greeting me with a big hug, the scent of grass mixed with train diesel reassuring me like no other. On graduation day, he spelled "marry me" with seashells on the beach, dropping to one knee, his eyes shining brighter than the waves. Sarah, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, waking up to your face every morning. At our wedding when I was 28, he held my hand and said, I'll love you forever, give you a home with children. Back then, he'd make me hot soup when I worked late, stay by my bedside all night when I was sick, whisper to my belly, longing for our child to come. No one could have guessed that this seemingly unbreakable love would crumble into pieces along the thorny path to parenthood. We tried to conceive naturally for 2 years, with no luck. Every month, I'd tremble with anxiety holding a pregnancy test, only to be crushed by the single pink line, like a bucket of cold water poured over me. I'd cry silently in the bathroom, afraid James would hear. I'd make excuses to avoid friends' baby showers, terrified of the tiny pink clothes and cute cribs that stabbed at my fragile heart. Scrolling through Facebook, I'd rush past friends' ultrasound photos, holding back tears, yet unable to resist zooming in again and again. When I was 32, our doctor referred us to Boston Fertility Center. 4 rounds of IVF drained all our savings, maxing out 3 credit cards, borrowing $10,000 from my parents, even selling the gold jewelry my mother had left me. Each round was a double torture of body and mind, injecting myself with hormones morning and night, the stabbing pain in my abdomen, the countless purple needle marks covering my skin, and the emotional chaos from hormone imbalance, crying 1 minute, laughing the next, snapping at James, then drowning in deep remorse. The 2-week wait after embryo transfer was sheer agony. I prayed every day, only to face failure 3 times. The first embryo failed to implant, the second ended in a chemical pregnancy, the third was rejected by my body outright. After each failure, I'd cry myself to sleep, while James would only say calmly, let's try again. Even the night after my 3rd failure, I heard him complaining to a friend through the door, this is all a waste of time. To save money, I gave up coffee and skincare products, eating the cheapest bento boxes every meal, while James continued buying new sneakers, dining out with friends, even holding the umbrella only over himself when accompanying me to the clinic on rainy days. The 4th round was our last gamble, only 1 embryo left. When the pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, I took it 3 times to believe it, but James only said, oh, not even offering a hug. I endured the hardships of pregnancy alone, shedding tears over the ultrasound report. When we heard the heartbeat at 5 weeks, registering at the hospital alone after passing the 12-week danger period, finding out it was a girl at 20 weeks, with James barely accompanying me to the appointment, staring at the screen for 5 minutes before rushing off, saying, I have a conference call. He always said, you're pregnant, never we're pregnant. He claimed to work late every night, returning home with the scent of unfamiliar perfume, glued to his phone, indifferent to me and the baby in my belly. At 7 months pregnant, I tried asking him, do you really want this baby? He looked up irritably. Someone has to pay for that $60,000 bill. Those words hit me like a slap in the face. By 8 months, I'd given up all hope of him, attending birthing classes alone, decorating the nursery by myself, with only my mom and sister offering a helping hand. On that Tuesday morning in October, sharp abdominal pain jolted me awake. My water broke, warm fluid flowing down my legs. I struggled to my feet and called James, gasping between contractions, it's time, the baby's coming. Now? I'm in a meeting. James, the baby is being born. Fine, I'll be there in an hour. But he didn't show up for 3 hours, not uttering a single apology. When he walked into the ward, he was holding a Starbucks coffee, his hair perfectly styled, his suit neatly pressed, as if he were attending an irrelevant party. He only asked, how much longer? I don't know, bodies don't run on schedules. He sat in the corner chair, pulling out his phone, scrolling through messages and short videos, glancing up only occasionally when I screamed in pain, his eyes lacking any trace of sympathy. Nurse Patricia was wonderful, she held my hand, wiped the sweat from my forehead, guided me through contractions, whispering encouragement in my ear, you're doing amazing, just a little longer, the baby will be here soon. She shot James countless disapproving looks but said nothing. 26 hours of labor, 26 hours of pain, fear, and exhaustion. Contractions crashed over me like waves, each one feeling like my insides were being torn apart. I was soaked to the bone, my throat raw from screaming, my nails digging into my palms until they bled. Finally, during the pushing stage, James was urged by the nurse to stand up, approaching me to give my hand a perfunctory squeeze. "You can do this." For a moment, I saw the boy I'd fallen in love with in high school, the one who'd left notes in my locker, the one who'd proposed to me on the beach at sunset. But in the next second, he let go of my hand and stood aside, scrolling through his phone. Then hope was born, and everything changed. The nurse placed her wet, crying, perfect little body on my chest. "Hi, baby," I whispered. "Hi, Hope, I'm your mom." I'd waited so long to say those words. James cut the umbilical cord, took a few photos, then left for the waiting room to call his mother. That was 40 hours ago. I'd been in this hospital room for 40 hours. James had gone home to shower, saying he'd be right back, but he was gone for 4 hours. Then Patricia came in to check my vital signs, followed by a woman in business attire, a hospital administrator's badge around her neck, holding a clipboard. "Mrs. Patterson," she said, looking nervous, "the lab has an urgent document that needs your signature." She handed me a manila envelope with the Boston Fertility Center logo. "What is it?" "I'm not sure, they just said it needs to be delivered immediately." I stared at the envelope, my hands shaking, maybe from exhaustion. I was about to open it when James walked in. He looked different, fresh from the shower in clean clothes, but his expression was tense, his eyes darting. "What's that?" he asked, pointing at the envelope. "Something from the fertility center." He strode over, snatching it from my hands. "James, let me see." He tore it open roughly, crumpling the paper, even cutting his finger, but he didn't seem to notice. And then he said it, "Thank God she's not yours." "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice choking. "What does the test say?" "It means the IVF clinic used the wrong egg," James said. "She's not biologically your child, you're just a surrogate. We can give her back to her real family." "Give her back?" My voice rose. "She's not a library book, James. And she's not your child either." He was already dialing. "Mom, it's me. Listen, something happened. The DNA results came back, this baby isn't Sarah's." I could hear his mother's voice on the other end, tinged with excitement. "Oh, thank God. I knew something was off, she doesn't look anything like our family. Hurry up and give her back, don't let her hold you back." I'd given birth to this baby just 26 hours earlier, and my mother-in-law was celebrating that she wasn't mine. "Mom, I'm right here," I said into the phone. "Sarah, you have to understand," she replied through the receiver, "she's not your child, you have no biological rights to her. I gave birth to her." "That doesn't matter legally," James said, not even looking at me, pacing back and forth, calculating. "The papers say it clearly, she's not yours. We need to get a lawyer, figure out our next steps. Maybe we can sue the clinic, get our money back." "Get our money back?" I could barely breathe. "Sarah, I never wanted this baby," he said, his voice cold and flat. "You're the one who wanted a child, who insisted on IVF, who maxed out our credit cards. And now this baby isn't even yours. We're done. You're leaving?" The room spun around me, dizziness washing over me. "I'm not raising someone else's kid. There is no someone else. It's IVF, there must be a mix-up with the paperwork or something. The test doesn't lie. She's not biologically yours, which means she's not mine either. I'm leaving." Patricia stepped forward. "Sir, you need to leave. I'm her husband. You're upsetting my patient. Leave now, or I'll call security." James looked at me, at Hope, then at the papers in his hand. "My lawyer will be in touch," he said, then walked out, just like that, slamming the door behind him so hard the water glass on the table toppled over. Just hours after I'd given birth, he was leaving, relieved that he thought the baby wasn't mine. I sat there trembling, holding Hope tightly in my arms, tears streaming down my face, dripping onto her soft blanket. She sensed my sorrow, her little lips trembling as she began to cry, her faint sobs tearing at my heart. Just then, the ward door burst open again, the administrator rushing in, her face as white as a sheet. "Mrs. Patterson, I am so sorry, there's been a terrible mistake." "I know," I said numbly, "the DNA test, no, I mean, the test results were delivered to the wrong room." Silence filled the air. Patricia stood up. "What? These results are for the patient in room 447, you're in 445, Mrs. Patterson." The lab mixed up the room numbers. She handed Patricia another envelope. When Patricia opened it, her expression changed completely. "Sarah," she said gently, "Hope is yours. This test shows a 99.9% match, she's your biological daughter." At first, the words didn't register. What? The first test was for someone else. Another patient, another baby. This is your test, your result. Hope is genetically your child. I laughed, then cried, then laughed and cried at the same time, like a broken-hearted fool. Hope was startled by my emotions, crying harder, and I held her tightly, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, her little hands, repeating over and over, "Baby, Mommy will never let anyone take you away, never ever." I picked up James's forgotten phone, unlocking it to find contents that chilled me to the core. Beyond the group chat I'd already seen, there were more shocking details. His messages with Melissa were filled with obscene intimacy, him sending her photos of our marital home, saying, "Once I get rid of Sarah, this will be ours." Records of him secretly transferring marital assets, wiring money to Melissa's account, even selling the gold necklace my mother had left me to buy her designer bags. What horrified me most was his conspiracy with his family. 3 months earlier, his mother had written in the group chat, "Sarah is too stubborn, even with a child, she won't hold you down. Wait until the baby is born, then say the marriage is irreparable. That way you'll look like the victim and get more property." James's sister Katie echoed, "Mom's right. Melissa's dad is a company director, he can get you a promotion and raise. Sarah's just a teacher, useless, a burden." James replied, "I was thinking the same thing. Once the baby is born, I'll have a lawyer draw up divorce papers. I paid most of the IVF fees, so I'll give her as little as possible in property and child support." He'd even discussed with his family transferring our jointly owned house to his mother's name, leaving me with nothing. The most devastating message was one he'd sent Melissa the night after my third IVF failure, "Baby, she failed again. What a waste of space, spending all my money and still can't get pregnant. I'll endure a few more months until she gives up completely, then I'll divorce her, and we can be together openly." In that moment all my grievances, pain, and resentment turned into cold resolve. I took screenshots of all the evidence, sending them to my college friend Lisa, who was a family lawyer, then called her, my voice steady, "Lisa, I want a divorce. I want him to pay for what he's done." Lisa arrived at the hospital within an hour, dressed in a professional suit, carrying a briefcase, and looking fully prepared for battle. She sat beside my bed, carefully reviewing all the evidence, her expression growing more solemn by the minute. "Sarah, this is the most egregious case of marital infidelity and abandonment I've ever seen," she said. "He cheated on you while you endured the physical and emotional torment of IVF, plotted your divorce while you were pregnant, and even tried to abandon his own daughter. The evidence is irrefutable, we will make sure he walks away with nothing." 4 hours later, James appeared at the hospital room door with a bouquet of red roses, a fake smile plastered on his face, his hair styled perfectly, as if his earlier hysteria had never happened. "Sarah, I was too impulsive earlier, it was all a misunderstanding. Let's talk this through," he said. Lisa stood up, positioning herself between us, her voice cold and sharp. "Mr. Patterson, I'm Sarah's attorney. From this point forward, all communication will go through me. Additionally, divorce papers have been drafted. You are accused of marital infidelity, transferring community property, and abandoning your wife and child. We will pursue legal action to hold you accountable, seeking a clean break divorce, substantial alimony and child support, and permanent revocation of your visitation rights with Hope. James's smile froze instantly. He stared at me in disbelief, his eyes filled with shock and panic. Sarah, you're really going to do this to me? Have you forgotten all the years we shared? I held up my phone, pulling up photos of him with Melissa, chat logs of his plot with his family, and records of his hidden asset transfers, laying them out before him one by one. My voice was icy. James, you cheated on me while I was pregnant, conspired against me with your family, and even tried to abandon our newborn daughter. Are you even worthy of being a husband or a father? Our relationship died the first time you complained about my IVF treatments. His face turned red, then pale, his lips trembling as he struggled to find words. The roses slipped from his hand, the petals scattering across the floor like his shattered pretense. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees, clutching my legs and begging. Sarah, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Please give me another chance. I'll treat you and the baby right, I'll never contact Melissa again, I'll transfer all the property back. Please. Tears and snot streamed down his face, his hair messy, his suit wrinkled. The confident, charismatic quarterback I'd once loved was gone, replaced by a desperate, pathetic mess. It's too late, I said, shoving him away forcefully, my voice steady and unwavering. The moment you said thank God she's not yours, we were over for good. You hurt not just me, but this innocent baby who just entered the world. You don't deserve forgiveness. Lisa handed him the divorce papers. Sign them. This is your best option. Otherwise, we'll see you in court, and you'll only face more embarrassment. You might even face jail time for transferring marital assets improperly. James stared at the papers, then at me, before finally signing his name with a trembling hand. At the divorce trial, James tried to defend himself, claiming he'd acted impulsively, and that I'd been emotionally unstable after giving birth. But as Lisa presented all the evidence, photos of him and Melissa, their chat logs, proof of asset transfers, Nurse Patricia's testimony, the hospital administrator's statement about the DNA mix-up, and records of his hysterical reaction that day, the judge's expression grew increasingly stern. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. James was granted a clean break divorce, ordered to pay substantial monthly child support and alimony, and permanently barred from visiting Hope. James's fate was even more miserable than I'd imagined. He lost his job. When his company learned of his actions, they deemed his moral character unfit, stating he'd severely damaged the company's reputation, and fired him. Melissa left him too, running off with some of the assets he'd secretly transferred, and posting their intimate photos online, ruining his reputation completely. His family, shamed by the scandal, became the subject of gossip among friends and relatives, and gradually distanced themselves from him, refusing even to let him set foot in their homes. Later, I heard he'd moved into a small, damp basement apartment, with mold growing on the walls and mice scurrying around. He couldn't find a steady job, so he survived on odd jobs, carrying cement, moving bricks, working himself to the bone, his back aching constantly. The money he earned barely covered rent and the cheapest groceries. Years of depression and overwork left him with severe liver disease and depression. He'd often drink alone in that basement, and when he got drunk, he'd cry out my name and Hope's. Once he snuck into Hope's kindergarten parking lot, trying to catch a glimpse of her, but the security guards stopped him. He flew into a rage, trying to storm inside, and was eventually arrested by the police, leaving him with a criminal record. I also heard that when he couldn't keep up with the child support payments, the court ordered wage garnishment, and his only remaining possession, the phone he'd used to communicate with Melissa, was seized and auctioned off. He'd become a complete loner, trapped in regret and suffering, a far cry from the glamorous football quarterback he'd once been. Today, Hope is 5 years old, smart, lively, and full of joy, with my eyes and my stubborn streak. She greets me with slippers when I get home from work, helps me pick vegetables while I cook, and wraps her little arms around my neck, saying, "Mommy, you're the best in the whole world. I love you more than anything." We've moved into a house with a yard, filled with sunflowers, Hope's favorite flower. Every evening, we sit in that yard, her head resting on my chest as I read her bedtime stories, the sun warming our faces, peaceful and content. People often ask if I hate James. Truth is, I don't, not anymore. Hating someone who doesn't deserve it is just a waste of energy. Instead, I'm grateful for that wrong DNA test, which revealed his true colors and let me escape before it was too late, sparing me from further suffering in a broken marriage. And most of all, I'm grateful for hope. She taught me that motherhood isn't about blood or marriage, it's about love, companionship, and protection. That 26-hour labor was the most painful moment of my life, but also the luckiest. It took away someone who didn't love me, but gave me a precious daughter who loves me unconditionally. James thought that DNA test was his ticket to freedom, but it turned out to be my path to liberation. He thought abandoning us would bring him happiness, but he ended up with nothing. As for me, after enduring betrayal and heartbreak, I still choose to believe in love, to cherish and protect my hope. Life is never smooth sailing. It brings pain, betrayal, and despair. But there are always beautiful things worth holding on to, fighting for, and cherishing. Hope is that beauty for me, the light in my darkness, the hope I clung to in my despair. I will love her, protect her, and raise her in a home filled with love, so she knows that no matter what challenges life brings, Mommy will always be her strongest support. Once, I thought happiness meant having a perfect marriage and a complete family. But now I understand, happiness is simple, watching your child grow up healthy and happy, having peace and freedom to be yourself, and being able to smile and embrace life even after facing storms. James's thank God eventually became my grateful to have met, grateful for hope, grateful for my rebirth from despair, grateful that I've finally become the person I was meant to be.